Welcome to SME Biz Hub, the leading integrated digital SME content platform that aggregates all national SME-related information and interventions by all stakeholders to enable SMEs as well as the different entrepreneurship stakeholders make informed decisions. SME Biz Hub is a policy discourse platform where we unpack and examine current SME policies as well as discuss SME policy options based on current felt challenges of SMEs and startups. Today we are going to explore Kenya's apparel and textile industry, specifically Kenya's fashion subsector. First, we shall take stock of the state of play of the subsector in terms of importance to socio-economic development to the country. We shall explore systemic challenges faced by players in the sector. We shall review current policy and/or various interventions towards the sector and identify gaps and propose alternative policy or interventions that will address the challenges faced. And finally, we shall explore opportunities for players in the sector under the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, as well as an outlook for 2021 for players in the subsector. With us to help us discuss the sector is Ms. Akinyi Odongo. Akinyi Odongo is an international award-winning haute couture designer who has been in the fashion industry for close to 2 decades. She is the creative genius behind the Mefa Creations brand, whose slogan is "For that sharp look." Over the years, Akinyi has earned recognition for her immense contribution to the African fashion industry. She's also the director of Mefa Institute of Design, a training facility that offers certificate and diploma courses in fashion and design. It is recognized by the Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Technology in Kenya. She also founded Wana Watindo, an after-school fashion class for kids, for she believes in nurturing talent at an early stage of life. Akinyi is also the executive board chair of the Kenyan Fashion Council, a multi-stakeholder body mandated to design strategies and interventions to support and sustain the growth of the Kenyan textile and apparel value chains, while also creating opportunities for paths to global markets through strategic collaborations. Welcome to the program, Ms. Akinyi.
Thank you. It was too long. You didn't even finish some of them.
I'm telling you, it's a serious bio or CV.
Yeah, and forgetting because then since we are in Africa, we have the Fashion Agenda Africa, where we also empower and coach young fashion designers, because I'm very passionate about the Your and the Kenyan youth as a whole in the creative industry.
So now that you've added an addendum to your introduction,
yes.
Could you take us through your personal journey in the fashion subsector? Trying to highlighting both your successes and failures.
Oh my God, I think I should start with failures first, because sometimes people think when you are successful, then there are no failures. But definitely, it's been not a walk in the park being in the fashion industry, and any fashion designer in Kenya or in Africa would be able, or any part of the world would be able to say that being a fashion designer is not a walk in the park. And most of it is driven by passion. You find that there are designers who didn't even go to school, but because they're passionate about that area, they're able to be in the industry. Starting up as I grew up in a small little village in Siaya County called Rangala, and went to the school in the same area. Both primary I went to still in Siaya, and then high school in the same place. So I'm a village girl. And as I grew up in the village, or maybe people will say that creativity hasn't been looked at as something that is of importance, yet it's very, very important. And people assume that for you to be in the creative space, either your IQ is not as high, or you're not very clever, or you failed in class. That's why you either become a carpenter or a tailor or a hairdresser. All these creatives are associated with failures. But as I grew up again, I was very creative in school, whether it's in primary level and high school. And sometimes you could be asked all this, where are you going to take? You're getting an A in in art and all these things, and you're getting maybe a D or a C in maths, and
science.
where will these things take you? Yeah. So it's for me, growing up as a creative, I had to really try to, because it was something I was very passionate about, and I made a deliberate decision that I'm going to pursue this. My mom was a tailor and used to make clothes, and I tried making clothes as a kid. And I looked back and say that my mother, whatever she did, if I can do it better and more professional and in a higher level. And then I started the journey of, looking into it. So after high school, I went for military training. I did it for about 2 years. And I figured out, I think I need to do something that is different, that I'm passionate about. But I do believe in every step of your journey, there's a purpose to it. There's a reason to it. And given that as a born-again Christian who believes in Jesus, and my faith is very an integral part of everything that I do, I want to believe that my steps were ordered by the Lord. So even as I went for the military training, there's a lot of lessons that I was taught. Things like keeping time, if it's turn left, it's left, it's right, it's right. So somehow it has helped me to, even when I'm working with clients or when I'm working on something, I'm deliberate and know that this thing must be finished. And there's no excuse for failure. Yes, you fail, you have to pick yourself up and move forward. And went to a local fashion school here in Kenya, the first fashion school in, that's Evelyn's College, the first fashion school in Eastern Central Africa. And it was a privilege to be there. And then after school, then what? You get into the market and realize, oh my God, whatever I learned in school, yes, it's very good, but the market isn't as I thought. You have to create your own space. It's like learning to swim in an ocean where you've only swum in a dam. So you're like,
or a swimming pool,
or maybe a pond in that matter. So I had to quickly, start rethinking and redesigning my strategy and myself. And one of the things that I made a decision on is to take myself seriously. I remember I'm getting into a space that people don't value as much, and everybody's doubting about it. Like, are you really sure this is what you want to do? And we literally put food on your table. So I had to deliberately work. So again, as any other entrepreneur, I was everything. I was the tailor, the accountant, the messenger, the cleaner,
salesperson.
The salesperson. I was a jack of all, they say jack of all trades.
Yeah,
I was doing
everything,
literally everything on my own. And I set up, I was then staying in a 2-bedroom house. So one of the bedroom where my kids are, that was my production. So I could stitch the whole night, the whole day, do all this work. Clients would come and fit. I take you to the toilet, come out, fit. So it was quite interesting. And I normally make a joke that actually the machines were a lullaby for my kids because they could sleep the whole night with those machines, but that's still sleeping. So it's really been a journey. And one of the things that I've learned, that in as much as you face the challenges in life, you have to step up and cross over those challenges. And I think challenges make us stronger. I have failed many times. I've burnt my fingers. I've done production that didn't work, and you burn your fingers and you don't know what to do. I've borrowed money that, from the bank, having some challenges, and sometimes like COVID. When COVID happened, I had a mortgage and I couldn't pay. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I had, having just to, and it taught me a lot, because I had to go to the bank and negotiate and say, thanks to CBK that said, there's a moratorium. So I had to go and negotiate for my own moratorium, and my bank was kind enough to. So the challenges are there. It's constant challenges, but how do you face the challenges? And also being in a space that you have to set up create your own path. When I started designing, I used to do curtains, weddings, jacket, everything. And as I grew, I realized, no, I need to create my niche and create what is it that I'm good at, so that I can focus and create other areas of business.
Is there any standing out success that you've experienced through your journey?
There are many.
Just one or two very...
The fact that I can sit here and talk about my business is a success enough. Like,
True.
I give all glory to God that there
Fair
are
enough.
many businesses that have closed. To be in a business for close to 20 years is not a joke.
Congratulations, by the way.
So I think that's my biggest achievement. I know they always say that businesses don't go beyond 5 years. So at least I went beyond 5 years.
You're not a statistic.
No, yes.
Yeah, so I think that's very important, again, for especially for people who, or budding entrepreneurs who maybe would want to go into that space. Maybe even as we shift gears, given that you are an industry veteran, how important is of course, the subsector, the textile and apparel subsector, but how important specifically is the fashion subsector to the economy, or the potential that there is that lies in in the fashion subsector in terms of socioeconomic development?
The fashion subsector is very critical and very important. And sadly, sometimes when we talk about the textile and apparel industry in Kenya, we talk about the EPZs and AGOA and all this. And we're like, okay, where are we in this? And without, we need to start is it rewarding or thinking differently?
Going back to the drawing board.
Going back to the drawing board and start having conversations on the whole value chain, not even leaving the farmers, because we have the cotton farmers way down in eastern part of Kenya, in western, Where are we leaving these people out? We have people who are rearing silks, the people who, and this is a whole value chain. So I think, and at the end, if you look at the value chain, we are towards the end. So sometimes people don't think it's as important. Whereas each and every person in this country, in Africa, and every part of that, they all wear clothes, which any outfit that is being worn in any part of the world, there was a fashion part of it. There was a tailor, there was a designer, whichever level, whether it's to the lowest level, in that mama in front of a shop somewhere in Kiambu. That is part of that industry. So it's such a big industry that hasn't been looked into, and probably because most of the creatives are not formalized. So when government also is doing a report, you're only doing report on the formalized ones. So I think it's a very core value. If you look at the HIVA report that they did about 2-3 years ago, they were talking of 70,000 fashion designers and tailors, but we are over 100,000. I want to believe over. Those are maybe if you look at the ones that you can be able to count. So it actually employs many, many people. You'll find that each designer could be averagely employing 5 to 10, and you can imagine the impact that they create. They have families, so it's a lot of, in fact, that sector creates more employment. Is that we haven't been captured? And I think as you, Victor, in your organization, we need to start doing some of these records and give people the right figures. We go to the mashinani to get who are these people and where are they? What are their challenges? Because again, as we have this conversation, we always have conversation on the higher level. What about the lower level? Because I do believe in analogy that for you to blow, growing up in the village, having the fire 3-stone, excuse me for those who never had the privilege to use the 3 stones. Like when you put the
like
fire.
Like myself, we
so you're lucky?
Yeah. Oh. I'm only joking.
For me, I have used it. I still use it when I go to the village. When you put firewood, you always have to bend down and blow so that the fire burns. Yeah. And you have to go that low for it to blow it for the fire to burn up. So for us, even as a country and as a continent, we need to look at how do we go back to the bottom? Because when you blow the fire from the bottom and it works, then you're going to have fire. So we can't assume the last part of the value chain or the smaller businesses that are out there and say they're not part of the textile, apparel, and even add fashion to it. So I'm very passionate about, I can talk about fashion until tomorrow. So you better stop me when I'm going too much.
I think maybe to give it more perspective, like when you're talking about maybe the tech industry, of course the tech industry in Kenya is still nascent or is still growing. So one of the things that we try to do in terms of giving perspective is maybe giving an example of maybe the US market, where if you look 10 years ago, the biggest companies were oil companies, IBMs and TTC. Going forward, 10 years now, we have Facebook, Twitter being the biggest companies. Maybe in terms of fashion, just to be able to maybe give that context. By drawing parallels maybe with developed nations or other developing countries who've been able to go through the ropes of fashion, and they are able to reap huge benefits from it. In Kenya we hear about New York Fashion Week. We hear about fashion weeks in different places. Is there a country that maybe that is very similar to Kenya, or in Africa or in Asia, that has gone through the path and has really been able to harness the power of fashion?
I'm very biased on on comparing us to the Western. It's a good thing to always
just
compare,
drawing parallels.
But I would say African fashion, we are very rich. First of all, we have to recognize that as Africa or as Kenya, we are very rich. And we have a lot within us. It's just that we haven't been able to harness what we have within us and grow it to that capacity. And it's high time that we looked into us and bring out that thing that we have, within us to come out. I would compare with Nigeria and Ghana. I mean, they've really been able to grow their fashion industries on another level. And because I think there's been a deliberate initiatives with government and even the citizens themselves that they value what they make within their countries, and they value wearing. They're bold enough to wear their agbadas or whichever part of Africa, the world they are. You can tell a Nigerian wherever he is, whether he's in London or wherever, you can tell that this is actually an African. And sometimes they believe Africa is this one big thing called Nigeria or Ghana, whatever way it is. But I think it's high time that we as creatives or fashion designers own up that space and keep talking about it positively to create that impact, because of the potential. Kenya, if you look at even our jewelry industry in Kenya, which is not being even talked about as much. It's the jewelry that comes from Kenya, believe you me, it beats every part of Africa. So and it's top notch. The creativity in this country is beyond measure. Whether it's IT or the creativity in this country is just, it blows your mind away. But it's about how do we have the conversation on how do we take this forward so that we are able to step up and also grow the industry with the support, with government support, and also partnering with the private sector, and see that this is a very important industry in Kenya. And we encourage Kenyans to look at it as every day you walk around, what are you wearing? Are you wearing something that is made locally or it is imported? How are you supporting the fashion designer? Victor, that shirt you're wearing, is it local?
Of course.
Sorry.
No, I think maybe just focusing on the industry players. These are the fashion designers. And, looking at the challenges that they're facing, what is stopping them? Maybe mention the challenges they face, and also, what is stopping them from achieving, the Nigeria or the Ghana in terms of, being very prominent. Is there, because it's not, you can't tell a customer, you need to buy because I'm local. There has to be more value. There has to be more reason why you need to buy. Specifically, I'm talking about myself. But the question, it's just an open question. It's not. I'm not in any way putting on the spot. But the question is, what are the challenges that the designers are facing, and how can different stakeholders, including government, be able to create an enabling environment? And if you could mention specifics, maybe that can start.
I think to mention just a few things that the challenges that designers in Kenya are facing. We have number one, we have availability of fabrics, the materials that we use. Most of the fabrics that designers are using are imported. We don't have mills locally that are able to produce fashion fabrics. So, and in that area, again, we were able to engage government, as you mentioned in my profile as a chair of Kenya Fashion Council. We were able to engage government, through the Office of the President under SME advisory, to see how then are we able to bring in fabrics and have duty, under duty remission, where we can prove that that fabric is not available locally. As the government is pushing for Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, we have to recognize that there are some fabrics that we do use that are not locally available. And the duty, once you have the duty on that, then it becomes very expensive. And that's why sometimes people would say that designers are very expensive, because the fabrics, as we buy them, they are not as cheap when we import them. So with that direction of duty remission, which we are exploring to see then how is it going to be, how do we need to follow through and say, is it working? Has it started operating? Is it helping the designers? So those are some of the things that the designers are facing. Tax incentive holidays, these are some of the things that we would like to see happening, where if as a designer you start up your business, are we having a grace period? Can we have the companies in the value chain of fashion have 10 years or so, yeah? Because this will encourage the informal sector to formalize and scale up. You realize that most of the business just start up, they don't even go and register because of the fear of KRA will start following me up, or NHI, which is very true, because as a business, when I started, I decided to do my business legally and do things even as a sole proprietor. But then you realize that the moment you register you want to do your things right, assume you start now paying your pay as you earn, or you do your NSF, you now become a target. The officers will come and visit you in your office because they now have your details. I'm like, can you follow up on others who haven't done things right? So it becomes a fearful way of, SMEs now get to fear that they can't get into the space, because the moment I just do the right thing, I'm in the eye of this person, and they'll always keep following me up, which is also, so if you have a 5-year, 10-year, this is what I'm going to do, because you need to stabilize. By the time you get either you're getting finance from friends or banks, because even banks, I don't know if there are banks who give creatives money. I've not heard, but it's a tall order.
They're in the process of doing that.
It's a tall order for a designer to get financing. Because first of all, it's an area that I think financial institutions hasn't seen as a key. They're like, there's risk. There's too much risk. You can't tell this is the season I'm going to be in business and that. So incubation hubs for designers, if there are incubation hubs, that would really help, so that even the younger designers would be able to come into a space where they can be able to create and do something. I'm hoping to work on one, and soon I hope I'll be able to mentor more and coach more designers to get to a level. You also support to trade development, developing Kenya houses in strategic markets. Those are just some of the things that I would say would be able to help. And also government can initially find it towards developing a PPP arrangement. So I think there are so many things. Financing is a challenge. How do we create a revolving financing scheme at competitive rates in terms of MSMEs, the 5% rate for a year, just enough to administrate. So to cover us from inflation costs, it's common user facility, which we are, as a council, we're able to engage with Office of the President as well. And you're trying to see if you can have a common user facility. Those are, there are points that we are looking at. And then you look at, if you look at power, electricity that we use, we don't have the incentives at the small business owners. We still pay the amount, a very high rate of power, which we can't compete with the EPZs either. And EPZs also, when they do their they have all those benefits being there. And as designers, we may not be able to. The small businesses may not be able to be at the EPZ because of the kind of investment that you need to be in an EPZ. So I have list and list and list. I don't know I should continue.
No. I think maybe let me just stop you there. Maybe just
and then war on illicit trade. I mean, there's so much coming in that is also affecting. It takes a bit of the market share. It's affecting us. All those things needs to be
Yeah, so I thank you for that.
I mean,
Thank you for that. I know.
Tax relief, holiday for
I know you
SMEs,
have a long list.
financing. I know. Anyway. Let me say this.
Yeah.
A green channel for licensing for startups. I think that, I don't know if that's something that, I think there was a ease of doing business where we are able to, if as a fashion designer in Kenya, is there a place that I can get this information for me to run a fashion business in this country? This is what I need. These are the bodies that I need to work with. And to have a green channel for licensing for startups, SMEs in the fashion industry at no cost, things like NEMAC, there's KEBS, as a startup, as we start, can we just have this easy way? Yesterday, I was having, in my office, I had the bell ring and then opened the door. I got 2 officers, one from KRA and one from Nairobi County. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? They're like, oh, we've come to see your license. I'm like, oh, it's very strange. Interesting that KRA and Nairobi County are now working together. Initially I could see KRA on their own and they were very kind because I asked them, oh, why are you here? They're like, oh, we've come to check your license. And of course I gave them my license and they asked me, oh, where's the fire license? I said, I thought it's inclusive in the license because initially it was, when you paid the license, it was plus the fire. And they said, no, it was changed. Now the fire is separate from the license. I'm like, oops, I wasn't aware. And where is that information? Did you communicate to the business? Have they communicated? Because as for me, I knew when I'm paying the license, I've paid plus the fire. So can we have this? These are some of the challenges because you'll find now you go and then either arrest someone, or get some, but it's just that they did not know. Are we communicating this? So those are some of the challenges that we are facing. Yeah.
So one of the things that one of the studies that we did last year was the SME index, performance index. And one of the things that a majority of the SMEs were saying coming 2021 is that they really want to access markets, new markets, as a resilience, mechanism, because of COVID. Interesting enough, Africa, is now trading under the, Continental Free Trade Agreement. And of course, that presents a market for SMEs generally, but also players in the fashion subsector. Maybe, based on your experience, how do you think, players in the sector can be able to take advantage of this new dispensation? You've mentioned, common manufacturing facilities, and I think you mentioned Rivertex. You've mentioned, some PPP collaboration between government and the sector. Do you think maybe the channel will be through EPZ, maybe as a way of, of all informal fashion designers going to EPZ and, manufacturing from there and using the facilities that are there? Do you think joining hands or forces with Rivertex would be an avenue? Do you think maybe, all fashion designers aggregating under the Fashion Council would give you better opportunities in terms of, being able to access different markets? Do you think working with Brand Kenya or Keproba much more strongly would give you a better advantage? I don't know what sense you have around, accessing markets, both for ESC as well as, I know it's a curveball, but probably you can just.
Okay, I think for it was just launched the other day, the continental, the way Africans can be able to trade with each other. Just a question where we may ask ourselves, I've always asked myself the question that sometimes it was very expensive to travel to an African country. The airfare to another African country is more higher than even going to Europe. or going to America. So, and then you start wondering, why aren't we trading with each? And then there's a lot of trade barriers, where you're not able to trade. And before even we start the conversation of intra-trade within Africa, do we understand what it entails? What are the policies that are there? What are some of the things that needs to be done? And is it operational, or is it a conversation that is still going on, and has everything been put end to end? But even leaving that aside, when things are still not yet clear, I think it's upon it's upon us to start preparing. We should have prepared as yesterday, so that we are just ready with our products to sell across. And there are very many ways of doing this. Through, as you mentioned, Keproba, who is also a very good partner to the council. And personally, I've benefited because I was able to go through training with that particular government body. And it plays a very critical role in matters export, and it has all the research and what can be done. And that's a channel that, as designers, we can really look into working with them in growing that market. And collaboration. Right now, where we are at, even with COVID, I mean, many businesses have been interrupted. There are those who have closed, or those who are thinking, what do I do? How do I move on from here? And I believe each and every designer has something to give. So it's high time that we looked into collaborating with each other, and having a body like the council, where it's able to bring in everybody. People can be able to bring in their product and export to a particular market as a team to reduce on costs, or still individually. If anybody wants to still do their thing individually, it's still possible, because you just to follow all the, the procedures that needs to be done, and, you trade. So for me, and it's going to be it's the biggest market share. And remember, Africa is what the whole world is also scrambling for. So as the other parts of the world is scrambling for revenues in Africa, and with our, billion population? It's
1.2.
It's the biggest. I mean, and the consumers and the middle, they say the middle class is rising, and it's going up, and it's the biggest market and everybody wants to get a part of Africa. So as everyone is scrambling for a part of Africa, are we as Africans also scrambling for that part? Or we are comfortable? Scrambling for ourselves, or we're just comfortable and saying, you know what, let them come and trade, and they'll just come and trade with us, because someone will just bring in products through Africa and transfer to another African countries, taking advantage of what? But we as Africans, we are seated somewhere thinking, oh, no one is going to drop anything on your lap. It's upon us as individuals, as organizations that deal with the creative sector, to step up and position ourselves in how do we trade with each other and take advantage of that.
Why I mentioned EPZ, and I think maybe if you could touch on that, is because whenever we are talking strategy around different sectors, and specifically around textile and apparel, we always think about EPZ, and we're thinking about trading under AGOA. So maybe just getting a sense of, what do you think? Is it that would you want to align with the government strategy of putting the sector ready for export under EPZ or any other special economic zone? Would you want a separate economic zone specifically for fashion? What's your sense of that?
I think when you get to the EPZ, one of the reasons why designers or small designers won't be able to be in the EPZ is, first of all, the costs. And then you have to, again, go through a different kind of licensing and registration to be in the EPZ. And 80% of your production has to be for export. Only 20% is local. So when you look at the fashion designer, probably when I'm starting, most of my market is local. I would say I'm the reverse, 80% local, 20% export, as you keep, working towards growing your market and the export market. So it will be a disadvantage for you to be in the EP, because there are also policies and guidelines that guide you being in the EPZ. So it's something that one can still do on their own as individual. Keproba plays a very key role, where they are able to bring in small businesses and prepare them for export, and even create those market access, and be able to arrange the expos and the travel. Like now, they're currently working in Dubai, which was supposed to be Dubai 2020, and because of COVID, it didn't happen. So there's now Dubai 2020/2021, So and Keproba has that mandate to ensure that we grow our export to the outside market. So I think by designers going through, knocking those doors of those organizations also. And I do say this with a lot of confidence, because I personally, to grow my business, I had to knock those doors. One thing I learned, that as a small business owner, the government will not look for you to throw for you a piece of meat to eat. No, it's you how bad do you want it? So I've always thought, if I want something so badly, when I wanted to get into the export market, I knock those doors and find the information is there. It's for you to go. It's their mandate. That's what they're supposed to do. So we need to also step up as business owners to engage with government and put them to task and engage and see, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to go. Where's the information? How can I do it? And there are bodies that are able to support us. But being in the EPZ, it's another ball game altogether. And there's the 80-20 part of it that won't really work unless, Victor, you have some money that you can be able to support me with to go and open a place there. Then we can export 80% and 20%.
I have just enough for my own. I'm barely surviving. So now, maybe as we wrap up, any words of encouragement or tips that you might give or you might want to share, maybe, with aspiring or budding entrepreneurs who want to join the sector?
First of all, I would say that follow your purpose, follow your heart, believe in yourself, and know that it's a rough world out here, and no one is going to give you anything on your lap. Nothing is going to drop from heaven. No manna is dropping. It's you to pick up yourself, know what you want to do, focus on it, be committed to it, and above all, commit it to God. Without God, it's impossible. That is giving my example. If in my close to 20 years journey in my business and in the business of fashion, without God, I wouldn't be where I am. When I fall down, I get up, dust myself, and face the next thing. And also, just to conclude, is because of the challenges I've been able to face along the way, I've purpose to create a solution for the solutions that I found out in my challenges. How do I transfer it to the next generation? How do I transfer it to other people? And that's why we're currently working on a fashion hub that I'll be able to have. I was doing it through Fashion Agenda Africa, where I've been able to mentor and coach young designers across Africa in currently 9 countries in Africa. And now we're focusing on how do we now create, with COVID that has just happened, most young designers can't even maybe have a store or create a platform or have systems. Then we are creating those systems that they're able to come in and fit in. So we have a space where we'll be holding about 25 brands, and we'll be announcing this soon.
Looking forward to you to learn. At least as a consumer, not as a designer.
Oh, yes, where you can come and have a variety, because when they say buy Kenya, build Kenya, Kenyans are asking, where do we find these brands? Is there a location where we can find them? And probably you can't go to someone's house. Yeah, I'm imagining how they start, because I also started in my house. So you have to come to my house when I'm not having lunch.
Thank you very much, Akinyi. I think that's a nice place to wrap it up. I think thank you very, very much for sharing your insights. We look forward to having more conversations around fashion.
Oh yes, we have big plans for this year.
Yeah, I'm telling you. So I hope the session has been helpful, and we look forward to to more conversation on SME policy. We encourage you to provide or give us feedback in terms of the sectors that you'd want us to tackle. And the kind of SME policy conversation that you'd like us to have. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, SME Biz Hub, as well as like our social media pages. God bless, and see you next time.